Local support for today's News 6 has been provided by the Northwest Ohio Educational Technology Foundation, Bowling Green State University, and the members of WBGU-TV.
Hi, we're the 6th grade class of Lake Elementary. Welcome to News 6.
Hi, I'm Jessica Caldwell from Lake Elementary. Welcome to News 6. With today's first story, here's Carmen Ann Zeldwa.
In our first segment, News 6 visits a successful hardware business that began back in 1916 as a small neighborhood general store. The original business was started by hardworking immigrants from Czechoslovakia. News 6 reporter Nick Baer has the details.
Ever need a left-handed widget? Well, I think we're in the right place. Hi, I'm Nick Baer. I'm here with Jamie Andrus of Andrus Hardware. Jamie, what is the history of Andrus Hardware?
My grandfather came to this country in 1906. He was a Czechoslovakian immigrant. He worked many odd jobs on the east side of Toledo until he started a hardware store in 1916. He had a very large family. Eventually, my father, Albert, moved to this location in 1954. The hardware store carried many general items, and I took over in 1992.
What are your most popular items?
I think what gets me the most notoriety in Toledo was a lot of my plumbing. We've really niched well to our neighborhood, and we carry a lot of stems, repair parts. I think that's what my main items are here, are the plumbing.
Why do you think Andrus Hardware has stood the test of time?
I think one of the reasons we've stood the test is we've really niched with our neighborhood. We have a lot of items, a lot of older items that suit the neighborhood. We cater to our landlord and a lot of our real estate businesses, and I think that's why we're so popular.
Thank you, Mr. Andrus. Now that we've got our left-handed widget, I think we can go back to the studio.
Today's News 6 is produced by Lake Elementary in Millbury, Ohio. Millbury is located in Wood County, 3 miles east of Toledo Municipal Airport. Millbury was founded in 1874 and has a population of 1,081.
Our next story takes a look at the cross-section of diseases. News 6 reporter Brian Walters spent some time with Ed Calamini, a lab technician at the Medical College of Ohio, to find out how doctors get the closer look at pieces of tissue in order to diagnose diseases.
Hi, I'm Brian Walter talking with Mr. Ed Calamini about his job as lab technician at the Medical College of Ohio. Mr. Calamini, your official title is electron microscopist. What does that mean?
Electron microscopist is a person who uses an electron microscope for various parts of either a research project or in the diagnosing of diseases on human tissues.
What is an electron microscope?
Electron microscope is a microscope, but it uses electrons as opposed to light to be able to see the tissues with.
What is the process that you go through to take pictures of the tissue?
Very briefly, what I do is get a tissue from a person that's taken out by a surgeon. We fix the sample in a glutaraldehyde solution, and various ways we go through and dehydrate it with alcohols, then put it into an epoxy resin, which is a liquid, and put that into the oven. It polymerizes, makes it solid, and we section it on a microtome, stain it again, and then put it in an electron microscope to take pictures of.
What do you like most about your job?
What I like most would be every day it's a different type of sample or a different disease in a given sample.
What does a doctor look for on the photographs?
Oh, that would depend on what tissue it is and what disease it is. Some of the things they're looking for deposits of immunoglobulins. Others they're looking for degeneration in like muscle tissues where the fibers are falling apart. It depends on what the sample is.
Thank you, Mr. Calamini. I guess it really is a small world. Now back to the studio.
This week in Kids View, the 6th graders at Lake Elementary talked about important figures in our current history. Let's listen to what they said.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Older with this week's Kids View question, which is, if you could change places with someone in history, who would it be and why?
If I could change places with anybody in history, it would be Betty Montgomery because she gets to make laws and she helps people.
If I could change places with anybody in history, it would be President Clinton because I think presidents can do a lot for the country.
If I could switch places with anybody in history, I would pick Neil Armstrong because he was the first person on the moon.
In northern parts of the United States, where the winters are cold and long, dog sled racing is fairly common, but in the Midwest, the sport is not as well known. News 6 had the rare opportunity to talk with a family who would be considered dog sled enthusiasts. Here's News 6 reporter Amanda Evans with the story.
Hi, I'm Amanda Evans talking with Mr. Lewis Goldstein and his daughter Ashley about their experiences racing dog sleds. Mr. Goldstein, what kind of dogs do you raise and why?
We raise Siberian Huskies and Alaskan Huskies. Most of our dogs are Siberian Huskies. They're the stronger dogs. They're not sometimes quite as fast as an Alaskan. So we use an Alaskan to pace our Siberians.
What is the sled made out of?
Most traditional sleds are made out of ash, green ash or white ash, although some of the newer sleds are made out of plastics, nylons and Delrins. The sleds we have here today are both green ash.
What kind of racing do you do?
Well, we do sprint racing. Sprint racing consists of the dogs just running as fast as they can. The races tend to run about 1 mile long per dog. So if you have 6 dogs, you're running about 6 or 7 miles. But it's called sprint racing as opposed to long distance racing like the Iditarod. You've probably heard of the Iditarod race up in Alaska. It's over 1,000 miles long. It takes about 9 days to run that. But we run sprint racing. Most of our races last less than half an hour.
Do you and your daughter race the same team of dogs?
Well, I race a 6-dog team normally. Ashley races a 3-dog, right? And she races in what's called a junior class, and you don't race the same dogs usually. Once a dog runs in a day, he's put up, and all he gets to do is lay around and eat and sleep for the rest of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein and Ashley. Now let's race back to the studio. That's all for this week's show. Be sure to tune in next week when the 6th grade class of Baton Elementary visits News 6.
Local support for today's News 6 has been provided by the Northwest Ohio Educational Technology Foundation, Bowling Green State University, and the members of WBGU-TV.